So, okay, let's just dive right in. India right now, it feels like it's in the middle of this huge political firestorm, doesn't it? All centered around this Waqf Amendment Act from 2025.
It really does. And looking at the information we've been digging into, it's quite a scene, especially with Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal really taking aim at some key figures.
Yeah, her comments about Nitish Kumar in Bihar and Chandrababu Naidu in Andhra Pradesh were, well, very pointed. They're major NDA allies.
Exactly. And it all comes back to this piece of legislation, this Waqf Act amendment, and the sheer intensity of the reaction it's provoked.
So that's what we're trying to do here, right? They unpack this, get to the heart of the controversy, and figure out why it's become such a flashpoint.
And it's interesting because, the concept of a Waqf itself, well, it sounds fairly straightforward at first glance.
Right, like a charitable thing.
Essentially, yeah. It's an endowment under Islamic law, usually property, sometimes money set aside for religious purposes or maybe education community benefit.
Like funding schools, keeping up mosques, that sort of thing.
Precisely. The idea is lasting benefit for the community. And the Waqf Act itself, well, that's just the legal framework, the rules for how these properties are managed by Waqf boards across India.
Seems pretty standard, designed to do good.
You'd think so. It sounds, quite benign.
But this 2025 amendment, wow, it's like someone kicked a hornet's nest. Suddenly it's not benign at all.
Not at all. And you see this stark contrast between what the government says they're trying to achieve and how it's being received.
Okay, so what's the official line? What does the NDA government claim the amendment is for?
Well, their stated aim, consistently, has been about improving transparency and efficiency, making sure the Waqf boards run properly.
Okay.
Their argument is basically that this ensures the benefits actually reach the minority communities they're intended for and stops any potential mismanagement or corruption.
Which, who argues against transparency, right? That sounds reasonable on the face of it.
Exactly. But then you have the opposition. And Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress, the TMC, they've been incredibly vocal.
And their take is completely different.
Night and day. They see it as a blatant power grab by the BJP, an attempt to undermine Muslim rights, fundamentally.
Yeah.
And also, importantly, chipping away at state autonomy within India's federal system.
That's a serious charge undermining federalism.
It is. And one specific part of the amendment seems to be causing a lot of the immediate anxiety. It relates to something called Waqf by user properties.
Waqf by user, what does that mean exactly?
So imagine land that a community has used for generations, maybe for a small prayer hall or a community space, but it was never formally registered as Waqf property. It's just been used that way.
Okay, like traditionally accepted but not on paper.
Right. And the amendment introduces this possibility that the government could basically denotify or de-recognize these properties, just say they're not Waqf anymore.
Ah, I see. So land that communities depend on that has deep roots could suddenly be up for grabs or disputed.
That's the fear. Given how much land might fall into this category, and, historical records aren't always perfect, you can see why it's causing a real concern. Potential for land disputes, legal chaos.
And in a place like India with its complex social fabric, that kind of uncertainty around land, especially land tied to religious or community identity, it feels like playing with fire.
It absolutely does. It taps into fears about security, about belonging. It's not just administrative tidying up in their view.
And this isn't just theoretical concern, is it? We've seen actual trouble flare up.
Tragically, yes. The situation in West Bengal's Murshidabad district, starting around April 11th, it's been really bad. Deadly protests, communal clashes.
I saw the reports. People killed, hundreds displaced.
Yes, 3 deaths reported, including a teenager, and hundreds fleeing to neighboring Malda district. Homes torched, shops vandalized. It got very ugly. The state even shut down the internet there for a bit.
And the courts had to get involved.
The Kolkata High Court ordered central forces to be deployed to try and calm things down. And even the Supreme Court weighed in.
What did they say?
Chief Justice Sanjiv Khanna specifically described the violence as very disturbing.
Yeah.
So the highest levels are acknowledging how serious this is. It's clearly gone beyond political debate.
Which brings us back to Mamata Banerjee's big speech in Kolkata, right, on April 16th.
Exactly. And the optics were significant. She was at Netaji Indoor Stadium, surrounded by prominent Muslim clerics and leaders. A very deliberate setting.
And she didn't hold back on Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu.
Not at all. She basically asks point blank, why are you guys silent on this? Your NDA partners, you're staying quiet just to share some power. A direct accusation.
Wow. That's putting them on the spot, essentially saying they're trading principles for power.
It's a classic political move trying to isolate them, pressure them. But her argument went broader, too.
How so?
She framed the entire act as being against the federal structure, an attack on states' rights. And she claimed the Murshidabad riots weren't spontaneous, but pre-planned.
Pre-planned by who, according to her?
She pointed the finger directly at the BJP, suggesting they orchestrated it to destabilize West Bengal ahead of the 2026 state elections.
That's a huge accusation, destabilizing a whole state.
Huge. And she even brought in the Border Security Force, the BSF, and other central agencies, accusing them of facilitating infiltration from Bangladesh to stir up trouble.
Goodness, that implicates national security forces. Has there been any proof of that?
Well, she's ordered a probe into the BSF's alleged role, but these are, very serious allegations flying around. She also announced compensation, 10 lakh rupees, for the families of those killed in Murshidabad.
Which is both a practical help and a political statement, I suppose.
Absolutely. And she called for the broader NDA opposition bloc to unite against the act. And she dropped a warning, saying first it's Muslims, but next it could be other groups, hinting at things like the Uniform Civil Code.
Trying to broaden the resistance, connect it to other anxieties.
Exactly. But, it's a double-edged sword for her.
How do you mean?
Well, while she's attacking the BJP and rallying her base, her own government is under fire because of the violence in Murshidabad. The BJP is hitting back hard.
Saying she can't maintain law and order.
Precisely. Accusing her of neglecting Hindu victims, of pandering to her Muslim vote bank. You had BJP figures like Shankar Ghosh saying Hindus aren't safe in West Bengal. It feeds right into that existing polarization.
So the rhetoric just escalates on all sides.
Very much so. And the NDA's response, particularly from Bihar, was swift and quite sharp.
What did they say to Mamata's accusations?
Union Minister Giriraj Singh, speaking in Patna, basically fired right back. He accused Mamata of wanting to turn West Bengal into Bangladesh. Highly charged language.
Wow, that's really inflammatory.
It is, and he doubled down, saying Bihar under Nitish Kumar is peaceful, contrasting it with West Bengal. Bihar will never become Bengal, he said, defending Nitish, attacking Mamata's record.
So turning the tables, essentially.
Exactly. And another JDU spokesperson, Rajiv Ranjan Prasad, dismissed her criticism too. Said Nitish doesn't need lectures from her. Look at West Bengal, it's out of control. While Bihar has had complete peace for 20 years, no riots.
It's fascinating how they frame peace versus out of control depending on who's speaking.
Standard political playbook, isn't it?
Yeah.
Highlight your perceived strengths, magnify your opponent's perceived weaknesses.
And all this highlights just how important Nitish and Chandrababu actually are to the BJP right now, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely crucial. The BJP needs their support in Parliament for a majority. They were key to passing this very Waqf Act amendment.
Which makes their current silence, the thing Mamata called out, even more noticeable. Is it smart strategy, just laying low? Or does it signal maybe some unease?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a very tricky balancing act for them. They need the BJP alliance for power and influence.
But they also have their own constituents to think about, including Muslim voters in their states.
Exactly. Especially Nitish Kumar, who historically tried to cultivate, somewhat secular credentials alongside his coalition politics. This silence could cost him goodwill, certainly with opposition figures like Mamata, maybe even among some voters.
It feels like there are just layers upon layers here. The law itself, the state politics, the national coalition dynamics.
And all playing out against this backdrop of very real human suffering in places like Murshidabad. Those images, the stories of people losing loved ones, losing their homes, that's the stark reality behind the political chess game.
It really brings it home. Mamata calling the violence pre-planned, accusing the BSF, talking about foreign elements, it paints a picture of a really volatile situation.
It does. And her ordering a probe into the BSF just adds another potentially explosive element.
Meanwhile, the BJP tells a completely different story.
Completely. Accusing Mamata of ignoring Hindu suffering, only caring about Muslim votes. And then you have groups like the VHP making that incredibly charged comparison to the Kashmiri Pandit exodus.
Which is just pouring fuel on the fire, surely.
It seems designed to do exactly that. Deepen those communal divides, which makes the Supreme Court's position even more critical.
Right. Their comment about the violence being very disturbing.
Yes, and their specific caution about rushing to denotify those Waqf by user properties. They seem aware that could just trigger more disputes, more tension.
So they're trying to find some way to, what was the phrase? Balance equities.
That's what they said they aim to do, perhaps through an interim order. It highlights just how sensitive this whole thing is. They know the potential consequences.
Looking ahead then, this whole controversy feels like it's already shaping the runway for the 2026 West Bengal election.
Oh, undeniably. It's become a central pillar of the political battleground there.
Mamata's strategy seems clear. Oppose the act, rally her Muslim base, paint the BJP and its allies as anti-minority.
It's a tried and tested approach for her, playing to her traditional strengths,
And the BJP's counter-strategy.
aiming for Hindu consolidation. Frame the act as reform, necessary transparency, push back against perceived appeasement. And tragically, the Murshidabad violence becomes ammunition for them to attack Mamata's governance on law and order. You even had Union Minister Kiran Rijiju accusing her of inciting violence by opposing the act.
So everyone's using this for their political ends, and Nitish and Chandrababu are caught in the middle.
In a very delicate spot. Their silence might avoid immediate conflict with the BJP, but it risks alienating their own voters and damaging relationships elsewhere. It's a tightrope.
So where do things stand right now as of, say, mid-April 2025? The Supreme Court is still hearing the case.
That's right. As of April 17th, the hearings were ongoing. Lots of anticipation about whether they might issue a stay, especially on that whack by user part.
And in West Bengal, is calm being restored?
Efforts are underway. The SIT probe, the central forces are there. But you get the sense the underlying tensions in Murshidabad, they're not just going to disappear overnight. It'll likely simmer.
It really feels like a high-stakes gamble for Mamata, linking her political future so strongly to opposing this act.
It is, and a major challenge for the NDA defending the act, keeping their coalition partners happy, managing the fallout. That silence from Nitish and Chandrababu, it avoids a fight now, but it carries its own risks down the line.
It's just such a potent example, isn't it? How religion, politics, power all get tangled up in India. A single law ignites protests, divides communities, shapes elections.
It really underscores how legislation, whatever the stated intent, can have these massive real-world impacts. You see the fault lines exposed.
So thinking about it all in this really complex dance, where accusations fly and even silence is loud, what does it actually mean for the people on the ground, the communities caught in the middle?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Amidst all this political noise, this polarization, how do individual voices, individual concerns actually get heard? How do you find common ground? It leaves you wondering about the long-term scars this might leave.